betrayal at home. Elias was a man who had everything: wealth, power, and influence. But for all his riches, he lacked one crucial quality: emotional connection. His focus was always on expanding his empire, leaving little time for his family. His two daughters, Amina, a thoughtful 14-year-old, and Zarah, a lively 10-year-old, grew up in a house filled with luxury but devoid of warmth. Their mother, Layla, was the glue that held the family together. Gentle and nurturing, she made sure her daughters felt loved, even when Elias's attention was elsewhere. But one tragic evening, everything changed. Layla passed away under mysterious circumstances. The family doctor claimed it was a sudden illness, but whispers around the household suggested otherwise. Amina overheard the servants murmuring about poison tea, but no one dared to speak openly. Elias, consumed by grief, married Miriam just a few months after Layla's death. Miriam was beautiful, charming, and cunning. She seemed kind at first, winning over Elias with her sweet words and attentive gestures. But once the honeymoon period ended, her true nature began to surface. For Amina and Zarah, life became a nightmare. Miriam's cruelty was subtle at first: sharp comments and cold glares, but soon escalated into outright abuse. She would assign them grueling chores meant for servants, withhold meals as punishment, and humiliate them in front of visitors. Amina tried to shield her younger sister, often taking on the brunt of Miriam's wrath, but it was impossible to protect Zarah entirely. Meanwhile, Elias remained oblivious. His days were spent in meetings and business deals, his nights entertaining influential clients. Whenever the girls tried to tell him about Miriam's behavior, she would twist their words, painting them as ungrateful and mischievous. Elias, trusting his new wife, dismissed their complaints as childish exaggerations. The sisters' world grew darker with each passing day. Amina began to suspect that her mother's death was no accident. Zarah, once carefree and cheerful, became quiet and withdrawn. The bond between the sisters grew stronger as they realized they could only rely on each other for comfort and survival. One evening, as they lay huddled together in their small room, Amina whispered to Zarah, "We have to stay strong, Zarah. Mama used to say, even the darkest night ends with the dawn. We'll get through this, together." Zarah nodded, clutching her sister's hand tightly. Little did they know, their journey of survival was just beginning. A cry for help. Weeks turned into months, and Miriam's cruelty toward Amina and Zarah grew worse. Yet, the sisters endured, finding solace in their bond. One fateful night, everything changed. Amina was finishing her assigned task of polishing the silverware in the dimly lit dining room. Zarah, too young to stay awake, had fallen asleep on a cushion in the corner. As Amina walked quietly, she heard hushed voices coming from the adjacent study. Curious, she moved closer, her heart pounding as she recognized the voices of Miriam and a man she hadn't met before. It was Simon, Miriam's brother, a shady figure with a reputation for scheming. Pressing her ear against the door, Amina listened intently. "They trust me completely," Miriam said with a venomous laugh. "Elias is blind. He doesn't see anything beyond the numbers in his accounts. Once he transfers the family assets to my name, it will be easy to cut him off completely." "And the girls?" Simon asked. "They're a nuisance, but nothing we can't handle," Miriam replied coldly. "We'll send them to a boarding school far away. Once Elias is out of the picture, I won't need to tolerate them anymore." Amina felt a chill run down her spine. Her mother's mysterious death, the abuse they had endured, everything now made sense. Miriam and Simon were planning to take everything from their family, and possibly harm them in the process. Amina gently woke Zarah, her voice trembling. "We have to leave now. Miriam and her brother are planning something terrible." Zarah, still half asleep, stared at her sister in confusion. "What do you mean? Where will we go?" I don't know yet, Amina admitted, but we can't stay here. The next morning, Amina gathered her courage and decided to confront their father. She found Elias in his study, buried in paperwork. Papa, we need to talk, Amina said, her voice firm. Elias barely looked up. Can it wait, Amina? I'm very busy. No, it can't, she insisted. Miriam is planning to take everything from us. She and her brother are plotting against you. Elias finally set his pen down and looked at her with tired eyes. Amina, you're too young to understand these things. Miriam has been nothing but supportive since your mother passed. She's lying to you. Amina pleaded, her voice breaking. Please, Papa, listen to me. She's dangerous. But before Elias could respond, Miriam appeared at the door, her expression feigning concern. What's going on here? She asked sweetly. Amina seems to think you're plotting against me, Elias said with a weary sigh. Miriam's eyes filled with mock hurt. Oh, Amina, why would you accuse me of something so awful? I've done nothing but care for you and your sister. Elias, swayed by Miriam's act, shook his head. Enough, Amina. I won't have you accusing Miriam without evidence. Go to your room. Amina felt her heart shatter. You're making a mistake, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. That night, Amina and Zarah made the difficult decision to leave. Amina packed a small bag with essentials, a loaf of bread, a flask of water, and a few of their mother's keepsakes. They waited until the house was silent, then slipped out into the cold, moonlit night. We'll find a safe place, Amina whispered to Zarah as they walked into the unknown. We have to. The sisters didn't know what awaited them, but they were determined to escape the clutches of their stepmother and protect each other at all costs. The journey begins. The chilly night air beat at their faces as Amina and Zarah made their way through the garden, clutching their small bundle of belongings. Every creak of a twig and rustle of the wind made their hearts race, but they pressed on, determined to escape. Just as they reached the back gate, a shadow moved in the darkness, and the sisters froze. Amina. Zarah, whispered a familiar voice. Relief flooded over them as they recognized Sefiu, the family's loyal servant. He had always been kind to them, sneaking them extra food when Miriam punished them and offering a comforting smile when they felt hopeless. What are you doing out here at this hour? Sefiu asked, his tone filled with concern. Miriam is planning something terrible, Amina said, her voice trembling. We have to leave before it's too late. Sefiu's face darkened. I've suspected her for some time. I don't know exactly what she's planning, but I know you're not safe here. Come with me, I'll help you. He led them to the stables, where he had a small cart hitched to a mule. This will take you far from here, Sefiu said, loading their belongings onto the cart. There's a village 2 days' journey from here where you'll find a woman named Nana Esai. She's wise and kind, she'll know how to help you. Amina and Zarah climbed into the cart, their eyes filled with gratitude. Thank you, Sefiu, Amina whispered. We'll never forget this. Sefiu nodded. Stay strong, girls. Your mother would be proud of you. Now, go quickly before anyone notices. The journey was long and arduous. The mule trudged slowly along the winding dirt paths, and the sisters took turns staying awake to watch for danger. Despite their exhaustion, they felt a sense of relief for the first time in months. After 2 days, they arrived at the village Sefiu had described. It was a small, peaceful place surrounded by lush greenery. The sisters asked around for Nana Esai and were directed to a modest hut at the edge of the village. When they knocked on the door, it was opened by an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. Her silver hair was wrapped in a colorful scarf, and she wore a simple, flowing dress. You must be Amina and Zarah, Nana Esai said before they could speak. Sefiu sent word ahead. "Come inside, my children." The sisters entered the cozy hut, which smelled of herbs and spices. Shelves lined the walls, filled with jars and books. A small fire crackled in the hearth, casting a comforting glow. "You're safe here," Nana Esai said, motioning for them to sit. "But you must be careful. Your journey is far from over." Amina explained everything: their mother's death, Miriam's cruelty, and the overheard plot. Nana Esai listened intently, nodding thoughtfully. "You are brave to have come this far," she said. "But bravery alone will not protect you. You must learn to be wise and resourceful. Stay here for a few days to rest, and I will teach you what I know." During their time with Nana Esai, the sisters learned practical skills like foraging, basic self-defense, and how to read the signs of nature to navigate. But Nana Esai also taught them something even more valuable: the importance of trusting each other and staying united. "Your bond as sisters is your greatest strength," she told them. "No matter what challenges lie ahead, as long as you have each other, you will prevail." When it was time to leave, Nana Esai handed Amina a small pouch of herbs. "These will keep you safe," she said. "And remember, you are stronger than you know." The sisters hugged Nana Esai tightly, tears in their eyes. "Thank you for everything," Amina said. "Go with courage, my dear ones," Nana Esai replied. "Your story is just beginning." As they left the village, the sisters felt a newfound sense of hope. They didn't know what the future held, but they were ready to face it together. Trials of the unknown. Amina and Zarah awoke to the sound of roosters crowing, marking their first full day in the village. Although they had found temporary safety, the sisters quickly realized that life here was very different from the one they'd known. Gone were the days of luxurious meals and soft beds. Instead, they faced early mornings, hard work, and simple living. Determined to earn their keep, the sisters offered to help around the village. Amina, skilled at organizing and quick to learn, found work assisting an elderly weaver. Zarah, with her boundless energy and natural charm, helped carry water and gather firewood for other villagers. Though the work was exhausting, it gave them a sense of purpose and a distraction from their fears. Despite their efforts, the sisters faced challenges. Amina struggled to adjust to the physical demands of her tasks, while Zarah often felt homesick, longing for the comfort of their former life. The villagers, though kind, were wary of outsiders and hesitant to fully trust the girls. One day, as they were carrying a heavy bundle of firewood back to the village, a cheerful voice called out to them. "You look like you could use a hand." Turning around, they saw a tall man with a broad smile and a straw hat perched on his head. He was Babu, a local farmer known for his generosity and good humor. "I've seen you two working hard all week," Babu said, taking the bundle from Amina and placing it on his own cart. "You remind me of my daughters when they were your age." "We don't want to trouble you," Amina said politely, though she was grateful for the help. "Nonsense," Babu said with a chuckle. "Come to my farm. You can rest there and have a proper meal." Babu's farm was a modest but lively place, filled with clucking chickens, grazing goats, and rows of crops. Over a hearty meal of fresh bread and vegetable stew, Babu asked about their story. Amina hesitated but eventually shared a simplified version, omitting the most dangerous details. Babu listened without judgment. "You're brave girls," he said. "And it seems to me that you've had more than your fair share of hardships. If you're willing to help on the farm, you're welcome to stay here." The sisters eagerly accepted, and life on the farm brought them a sense of stability they hadn't felt in months. Amina took on tasks like sorting produce and managing the accounts, while Zarah found joy in feeding the animals and tending to the garden. For the first time in a long while, they felt a glimmer of hope. But their peace was short-lived. One evening, as the sisters and Babu were enjoying dinner, a shadow fell across the open doorway. A stranger stood there, a man with a sharp gaze and a menacing aura. It was Simon. Well, well, Simon said with a smirk. Isn't this a cozy little scene? Babu stood up, his cheerful demeanor replaced by a steely resolve. Who are you, and what do you want? He asked, his voice calm but firm. I'm here for the girls, Simon replied, stepping into the room. They belong to their stepmother, and she's been worried sick about them. Amina and Zarah froze in fear, their worst nightmare come to life. Babu glanced at the girls, reading the terror in their eyes. They're not going anywhere with you, Babu said, positioning himself between Simon and the sisters. Simon's smirk faltered, and his tone grew colder. You don't want to make this difficult, old man. Step aside. But Babu didn't move. You'll have to go through me first. Realizing he couldn't overpower Babu alone, Simon left with a warning. This isn't over, he snarled. I'll be back. After Simon disappeared into the night, Babu turned to the sisters. We need to act fast, he said. It's no longer safe here. You have to leave before he comes back with reinforcements. Tears welled in Zarah's eyes. Where will we go? We'll figure that out, Amina said, her voice shaking but determined. We'll keep moving until we find safety. Babu packed provisions for the journey and gave the sisters a small pouch of coins. You're strong girls, he said, his voice filled with warmth. Keep your heads high and don't let fear win. You're destined for something greater. As they left the farm under the cover of darkness, Amina and Zarah felt a mix of gratitude and sorrow. Once again, they were on the run, but this time, they carried with them the lessons of resilience and kindness from those who had helped them along the way. A narrow escape. The sisters hurried down the dusty road under the cover of darkness, their hearts pounding with every step. Babu had given them a map of the region, marking a route that would lead them away from the village and into a nearby forest. He warned them that Simon was likely close behind and that speed and caution were their only allies. As dawn broke, Amina and Zarah reached the edge of the forest. The towering trees provided a canopy of shade, and the dense undergrowth muffled their footsteps. Exhausted but determined, they pressed on, knowing that Simon wouldn't be far behind. The forest, though peaceful at first glance, soon became a maze of tangled vines and hidden dangers. The sisters struggled to find a clear path, their movements slowed by fatigue and fear. They knew they couldn't afford to stop for long, but as the sun dipped low in the sky, their strength began to wane. Just as despair started to set in, the sound of voices reached their ears. Amina motioned for Zarah to stay quiet as they crept closer. Peering through the bushes, they saw a group of nomads gathered around a campfire. The men and women were dressed in colorful, flowing garments, and their camp was bustling with activity, children playing, elders tending to pots over open flames, and animals grazing nearby. The sisters hesitated, unsure if they could trust these strangers. But before they could decide, a sharp crack echoed behind them, a branch breaking under a heavy foot. Amina turned to see Simon emerging from the shadows, his eyes locked on them. There you are, Simon sneered. You've caused me enough trouble. Without thinking, Amina grabbed Zarah's hand and bolted toward the nomads' camp. Help us, she shouted as they burst into the clearing. The nomads immediately stood, their cheerful chatter replaced by weary silence. A tall, imposing man with a staff stepped forward. What's going on here? He asked, his deep voice commanding attention. Simon barged into the clearing, his face twisted with frustration. These girls belong to me, he lied. They've run away, and I've been sent to bring them back. The tall man, who seemed to be the leader, looked at Simon with suspicion. They don't look like they're with you by choice. They're my stepmother's words, Simon said, his tone dripping with false sincerity. They've been very troublesome. Amina stepped forward, her voice trembling but defiant. He's lying. He's trying to take us back to someone who wants to harm us. Please, don't let him take us. The leader studied her for a moment, then turned to his people. Secure this man, he ordered. Before Simon could react, two younger men grabbed him, pinning his arms behind his back. He struggled and cursed, but the nomads were strong and determined. You'll regret this. Simon spat as they tied his hands with thick rope. The leader turned back to the sisters. You're safe now, he said. But you've brought trouble to our camp. If you wish to stay, you'll have to earn your keep. We'll do whatever you ask, Amina said quickly. We just need a place to stay and time to figure out what to do next. The leader nodded. Very well. I'm Malik. You can stay as long as you help with the chores. Over the next few days, Amina and Zarah worked tirelessly alongside the nomads. Amina helped with organizing supplies and preparing meals, while Zarah entertained the children with stories and games. Despite their fear and uncertainty, they began to feel a sense of belonging. Simon remained tied up under close watch, but the sisters knew it was only a matter of time before he found a way to escape. Malik warned them that they couldn't stay indefinitely. We're always on the move, he said. If you're smart, you'll figure out your next step soon. On their final night in the camp, Amina and Zarah sat by the fire with Malik. Thank you for helping us, Amina said. We don't know what we would have done without you. Remember, Malik said, his voice firm but kind, your strength lies in your unity. As long as you stand together, you can overcome anything. The next morning, with provisions packed and directions from Malik, the sisters left the camp before Simon could cause any more trouble. As they walked deeper into the forest, they felt a renewed sense of determination. The path ahead was uncertain, but they were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. A new home, a new threat. After days of traveling through dense forests and rugged terrain, Amina and Zarah finally arrived at the outskirts of a bustling city. Guided by the directions Malik had provided, they marveled at the sheer vibrancy of their new surroundings. The city was alive with noise and color, vendors shouting to attract customers, children darting through the crowded streets, and carts overflowing with goods lining the market square. This place is incredible, Zarah said, her eyes wide with wonder. Amina, though equally awestruck, stayed cautious. We'll have to be careful, she reminded her sister. We don't know who we can trust here. The sisters made their way to the market, where they hoped to find work. At first, they were met with skepticism from the merchants, who eyed them warily. But it wasn't long before Amina's intelligence and Zarah's natural charm began to shine through. Amina offered to help a struggling merchant, Kwaku, organize his inventory. Within hours, she had created a system that made it easier for him to track his goods and profits. You're a sharp one, Kwaku said, impressed. If you keep this up, I'll make sure you're never out of work. Meanwhile, Zarah found her niche entertaining customers with her warm smile and quick wit. She drew crowds to the stalls she worked at, convincing even the most hesitant buyers to make a purchase. Her bubbly personality earned her the nickname Little Sunshine among the market vendors. Before long, the sisters carved out a modest but respectable place for themselves in the market community. They rented a small room above a bakery, paid for with the wages they earned. For the first time in months, they felt a sense of stability. However, not everyone was happy with their success. Kofi, a wealthy but unscrupulous merchant, noticed the sisters' growing popularity. Known for his greed and jealousy, Kofi saw them as a threat to his business. One evening, while eavesdropping on a conversation between Kwaku and another vendor, he overheard fragments of their story, their escape from a cruel stepmother and their struggle to start over. So, Kofi muttered to himself, a sly grin spreading across his face. They're hiding something. That could be useful. The next day, Kofi approached Amina under the pretense of offering her a lucrative job. You're a clever girl, he said smoothly. I could use someone like you to manage my accounts. I'll pay you double what you're earning now. Amina hesitated. Something about Kofi's demeanor made her uneasy. Thank you for the offer, she said politely, but I'm happy with my current work. Kofi's smile faltered. Think about it, he said, his tone sharper. Opportunities like this don't come often. When Amina told Zarah about the encounter, her sister frowned. He gives me a bad feeling, Zarah said. We should be careful around him. Over the next few days, Kofi's attempts to manipulate the sisters became more aggressive. He spread rumors about them, telling the other merchants that Amina and Zarah were thieves who had fled their previous home. Though many of the vendors dismissed his claims, a few began to keep their distance. One evening, Kofi cornered Zarah as she was closing up a store. If you don't want trouble, you do as I say, he threatened. I know who you really are. I could send word to your stepmother, Miriam. Zarah's heart raced, but she refused to let him see her fear. You don't scare me, she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. We've faced worse than you. That night, the sisters discussed what to do. We can't let him intimidate us, Amina said. But we also can't let him expose us. If Miriam finds out where we are. We need a plan, Zarah said. We have to protect ourselves. The sisters decided to confront Kofi together. They approached him in the market the next day, standing tall despite their fear. We know what you're trying to do, Amina said, her voice firm. But if you try to harm us, the entire market will know about your lies. Kofi scoffed but hesitated. He knew his reputation wasn't spotless and that a public accusation could ruin him. Fine, he said with a sneer. But don't think you've won. This isn't over. Though the immediate danger had passed, the encounter served as a stark reminder of how vulnerable they still were. Amina and Zarah resolved to remain vigilant, leaning on each other for strength as they navigated the challenges of their new life. The revelation. Elias sat in his lavish study, the dim light from the desk lamp illuminating his furrowed brow. For months, he had buried himself in his business dealings, ignoring the growing tension in his household. But something about Miriam's recent behavior gnawed at the back of his mind. She had become increasingly evasive, often locking herself away in whispered phone calls or hurriedly ending conversations when he entered the room. Small inconsistencies began to pile up, receipts for extravagant purchases she claimed were gifts, trips she took without explanation, and her dismissive attitude when he brought up his daughters. It was a conversation with his lawyer that tipped the scales. You're transferring another property to Miriam's name, the lawyer asked. That makes 3 this month. Elias froze. 3? No, that can't be right. I authorized 1. The lawyer hesitated. I assumed you approved it. Miriam said it was under your instruction. Elias's stomach churned. For the first time, he allowed himself to question the woman he had so readily trusted. His daughter's warnings, the ones he had so easily dismissed, came rushing back to him. Could they have been right all along? Determined to uncover the truth, Elias hired a private investigator named Kwame, a meticulous and experienced professional known for his discretion. I want to know everything, Elias told him. Leave no stone unturned. Days turned into weeks as Kwame worked tirelessly, piecing together Miriam's life behind the scenes. What he found shook Elias to his core. She's been siphoning funds from your accounts, Kwame reported during one of their meetings. And those trips she took. She met with her brother, Simon. They've been plotting to take control of your entire estate. Elias leaned back in his chair, stunned. And my daughters? What happened to them? Kwame's expression softened. Your daughters fled the house, likely out of fear for their safety. I've tracked their journey through witness accounts. A servant named Sefiu helped them escape. They stayed briefly in a village, then moved on to a city where they've been working in the market. The weight of guilt crashed down on Elias like a tidal wave. His mind replayed every time Amina and Zarah had come to him, pleading for his attention, for protection, for love. And every time, he had chosen to believe Miriam instead. How could I have been so blind? Elias muttered, his voice thick with emotion. Kwame placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. What matters now is finding them. There's still time to make things right. Elias wasted no time. He cancelled all of Miriam's access to his accounts, froze her assets, and instructed security to bar her and Simon from the estate. Confronting her would come later, his priority was his daughters. With Kwame's guidance, Elias embarked on a desperate search, retracing the sisters' steps. He visited the village where they had stayed, speaking with the kind people who had sheltered them. At each stop, he was met with stories of Amina's intelligence and Zarah's charm, tales of their resilience and courage despite their hardships. They've grown so much, Elias thought, a pang of both pride and sorrow hitting him. But they shouldn't have had to. Eventually, Elias reached the bustling city where the sisters were last seen. He wandered the crowded market, scanning every face, hoping for a glimpse of his daughters. Each moment that passed without finding them deepened his resolve. As he moved through the throngs of people, a merchant stopped him. "Are you looking for someone?" the man asked, noticing the desperation in Elias's expression. "Yes," Elias said, his voice trembling. "My daughters. Amina and Zarah. Have you seen them?" The merchant paused, then nodded. "They've been walking here. Bright girls, both of them. But there's been trouble recently." "What kind of trouble?" Elias asked, his heart sinking. A merchant named Kofi was causing problems for them. "The girls haven't been around for a few days. They might have gone into hiding." Elias clenched his fist. He had come so close, yet his daughters still seemed just out of reach. But he wasn't giving up, not this time. "I'll find you," he whispered to himself. "No matter how long it takes, I'll bring you home." Rising above, Amina and Zarah returned to the bustling market with a renewed sense of purpose. After their encounter with Kofi, they knew they needed to make themselves indispensable in the community. This was no longer just about survival, it was about building a life where they could thrive. Amina, always analytical and resourceful, began observing the market's inefficiencies. She noticed how merchants often lost track of their inventory, leading to arguments, shortages, or wasted goods. Inspired, she devised a simple yet effective system, a ledger for tracking stock, sales, and profits. She even created color-coded charts for quick understanding. When Amina introduced the idea to Kwaku, the merchant who had first given her a chance, he was skeptical but willing to try. Within weeks, his profits increased, and his operations ran more smoothly than ever. Word of Amina's invention spread quickly, and soon, merchants from across the market came to her for help. "You're a genius, girl," one of them said, holding up her neatly written ledger. "This will save me so much time." City officials caught wind of Amina's work and invited her to a council meeting. There, she presented her system, earning applause and offers of collaboration. Amina's name became synonymous with innovation, and her influence in the market grew. While Amina was building systems, Zarah was weaving stories. She had always loved telling tales, but now her storytelling became a way to connect with the community. Every evening, she would gather a crowd in the market square, spinning captivating narratives of courage, resilience, and love. Her stories, often inspired by their own journey, resonated deeply with her audience. Children laughed and clapped, adults nodded with admiration, and even the most hardened skeptics were drawn in by her charisma. One evening, Zarah told a tale about two sisters who escaped a cruel stepmother, emphasizing their unity and bravery. Though she never revealed it was their story, those who listened could feel the authenticity behind her words. People began to admire her not just for her skill but for her heart. The sisters' rising prominence earned them both allies and enemies. Many merchants respected Amina's intelligence and sought to work with her, while Zarah's stories brought joy to the community. But their success also attracted jealousy. Kofi, still bitter about his failed attempt to exploit them, saw their newfound fame as an opportunity for revenge. "They think they're untouchable," he muttered to himself. "I'll show them otherwise." One day, a wealthy merchant approached Amina with an offer that seemed too good to be true, a chance to implement her system across the entire city. Amina, wary of his intentions, asked for time to consider the proposal. That night, she discussed it with Zarah. "It feels rushed," Amina said. "And something about him reminds me of Kofi." Zarah agreed. "We've learned the hard way to trust our instincts. Let's wait." Their caution proved wise. The next morning, they discovered that the merchant had been working with Kofi, trying to gather information about their past to discredit them. But by now, the sisters had earned enough respect in the community that even these attempts failed. Their allies rallied around them, defending their integrity and warning others about Kofi's schemes. "We won't let anyone harm you," Kwaku told them. "You've done too much for this market to let some bitter fool tear you down." As their influence grew, Amina and Zarah decided to give back. They started a small initiative to teach other children and young adults in the market. Amina taught basic accounting and problem solving, while Zarah held storytelling workshops to inspire confidence and creativity. Through their efforts, the sisters not only secured their place in the city but also began to transform it. Their resilience and determination turned them into symbols of hope, proving that even in the face of adversity, it was possible to rise above. But as they basked in their hard-earned success, they couldn't help but wonder, how long would this peace last? And would they ever reunite with the father they once knew? Confrontation. Elias entered the bustling market, his eyes scanning the sea of faces, his heart pounding with anticipation and fear. It had taken weeks of following leads and speaking to merchants, but he finally arrived at the market square where Amina and Zarah had made their mark. He spotted them almost immediately. Amina was standing at a stall, discussing something with a merchant, her composed demeanor and sharp intellect evident even from a distance. Zarah was a few steps away, surrounded by a group of children as she recounted one of her stories, her expressive face lighting up the crowd. For a moment, Elias froze, overwhelmed by the sight of his daughters thriving despite all they had endured. Pride mixed with guilt as he took a hesitant step forward, unsure of how they would react. "Amina. Zarah," he called softly. Both sisters turned toward the familiar voice, their expressions shifting from surprise to a guarded wariness. Amina immediately stepped protectively in front of Zarah, her posture rigid. "What are you doing here?" Amina asked, her voice cold and firm. "I've been searching for you," Elias said, his voice trembling. "I know I failed you. I've come to make things right." Zarah looked at him with a mixture of hurt and disbelief. "Now you care? After everything we've been through?" Elias winced. "I didn't know. I didn't see what Miriam was doing to you." "You didn't want to see," Amina interrupted, her voice rising with anger. "We begged you to listen. We told you what she was doing, but you ignored us every time. You chose her lies over our truth." Elias took a step closer, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "I was wrong. I see that now. I let my grief and my pride blind me, and it cost me my family. Please, give me a chance to make amends." Zarah's eyes filled with tears, but she held her ground. "Do you know what it was like for us? Running away in the middle of the night, terrified of what she might do. Working ourselves to exhaustion just to survive. You weren't there for us when we needed you most. Eliza's face crumpled as he listened to their words, each one cutting deeper than the last. I can't change the past, he said, his voice breaking. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right. Please, come home. Amina shook her head, her expression unreadable. Home. Do you even know what that word means? A home is supposed to be a place where you feel safe, loved, protected. We haven't had that since Mama died. Eliza's shoulders sagged under the weight of their accusations. You're right, he admitted. I failed as a father. I let my own pain overshadow yours. But I swear to you, I do whatever it takes to earn your trust again. The marketplace had grown quiet as the confrontation unfolded, onlookers watching with a mixture of curiosity and sympathy. Amina glanced around, feeling exposed. This isn't the place for this, she said tersely. If you want to talk, meet us tonight at the inn near the fountain. We'll decide then if it's worth hearing you out. Elias nodded, understanding that he was at their mercy. I'll be there, he said quietly. That evening, in the dimly lit common room of the inn, Amina and Zarah sat across from their father, their expressions still guarded. Elias began by recounting everything he had discovered about Miriam's deceit, his own guilt, and the steps he had taken to remove her influence from their lives. I can't undo the pain I caused, Elias said. But I want to give you back the life you deserve. Not because I expect forgiveness, but because it's the least I can do. Amina studied him for a long moment. If we agree to let you back into our lives, there will be conditions. You have to prove that you've changed. Words aren't enough. Zarah nodded, her voice softer but resolute. And if you ever put us second again, if you ever let someone hurt us, we'll walk away for good. Elias swallowed hard, his eyes shining with tears. I understand. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving myself worthy of being your father. Though their trust wasn't fully restored, Amina and Zarah agreed to give Elias a chance. It was a fragile beginning, but it was a beginning nonetheless, a chance for healing, accountability, and the hope of rebuilding what had been broken. Redemption and forgiveness. Elias knew that regaining his daughter's trust would be an uphill battle. The wounds he had caused ran deep, and words alone could not heal them. Determined to prove his sincerity, he threw himself into making amends. A father's transformation. Elias started by making changes in his own life. He sold the lavish mansion he had once shared with Miriam, choosing instead to move into a modest home in the city to be closer to Amina and Zarah. The wealth and power he once prioritized now felt meaningless compared to the family he had almost lost. He spent time volunteering in the market, assisting the vendors Amina and Zarah had grown close to. He learned about their work, the inventory systems Amina had designed and the stories Zarah told to uplift the community. He quietly supported their efforts, funding their initiatives without overshadowing their independence. Amina, ever cautious, observed his actions closely. He's trying, Zarah said one evening as they watched him help a merchant stack goods. But can we trust him? We'll see, Amina replied. Actions speak louder than words. Exposing Miriam and Simon. While Elias worked to rebuild his relationship with his daughters, he also focused on holding Miriam and Simon accountable. With the help of Kwame, the private investigator, Elias compiled evidence of their crimes, embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy to harm his daughters. The case against them was airtight. Miriam and Simon were arrested, and the trial revealed the full extent of their schemes. Witnesses testified about their deceitful behavior, including the loyal servant Sefiu, who recounted how he had helped Amina and Zarah escape. When the verdict came, Miriam and Simon were sentenced to long prison terms. Elias felt a sense of closure, knowing they could no longer harm anyone else. More importantly, he hoped this would give his daughters a sense of justice. Rebuilding bonds. Elias approached his daughters cautiously, understanding that trust could not be rebuilt overnight. He started by joining their daily routines, helping Amina with her ledgers and attending Zarah's storytelling sessions in the market. Though he often felt out of place, he remained patient, allowing his daughters to set the pace. One day, Amina surprised him by asking for his advice on a particularly complex inventory issue. "You used to manage entire businesses," she said, her tone measured. "What would you do here?" Elias's heart swelled with hope. "I'd simplify the system," he replied, offering his suggestions. To his relief, Amina nodded thoughtfully, incorporating his ideas. Zarah, too, began to soften. After one of her storytelling sessions, she approached Elias with a shy smile. "Do you remember the bedtime stories Mama used to tell us?" she asked. "I do," Elias said, his voice thick with emotion. She had a gift for weaving magic into her words. "She did," Zarah agreed. "But I see now where I get my love for storytelling. You always had a way of captivating people in your meetings." Elias laughed softly. "If only I had used that talent to connect with my family instead." A new chapter. Months passed, and the fragile bond between Elias and his daughters grew stronger. Together, they worked to expand the community programs Amina and Zarah had started. Elias offered his business acumen to help manage funding, while Amina and Zarah focused on teaching and inspiring others. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Zarah spoke up. "I think Mama would be proud of us." "She would," Elias said, his voice filled with both sorrow and gratitude. "And I hope, one day, I can make her proud too." "You're getting there," Amina said, her tone softer than it had been in years. "But remember, it's a journey. We are still healing." "I know," Elias replied. "And I'm willing to spend the rest of my life earning your trust and forgiveness." For the first time in a long while, the three of them laughed together, the sound echoing into the night. Though the road had been long and fraught with pain, they had found a way back to each other. It wasn't perfect, but it was real, and it was enough to begin anew. A legacy of strength. Amina and Zarah stood at the edge of a large, empty plot of land on the outskirts of the city. It was a gift from Elias, given without fanfare but with a heartfelt intention, to help them fulfill their dream of creating a safe haven for children like themselves. "This is where it all begins," Amina said, her voice filled with determination. Zarah nodded beside her, a mix of excitement and emotion in her eyes. Building the dream. The sisters had long dreamed of giving back to the community that had given them so much. Their vision was to open a school for orphaned and abandoned children, a place where they could learn, grow, and heal. They wanted to provide not just education but also emotional support, life skills, and a sense of belonging. With Elias's financial support, the construction began. The school would have classrooms, a library, a small garden, and dormitories for children with nowhere else to go. Amina designed the curriculum, emphasizing both academics and practical skills like accounting, storytelling, and trade work. Zarah envisioned a vibrant environment where art, music, and creativity would flourish. Elias, humbled by their vision, took on the role of a silent partner. He helped manage the logistics, coordinated with contractors, and ensured that every corner of the school reflected the warmth and care his daughters wanted to provide. Opening the doors. Months later, the school was ready. They named it Layla's Haven in honor of their late mother, who had been their first teacher and nurturer. The grand opening was a community event, attended by merchants, city officials, and the many friends the sisters had made along the way. When the first group of children arrived, nervous, wide-eyed, and clutching their few belongings, Amina and Zarah welcomed them with open arms. "You're safe here," Zarah said gently, kneeling to meet them at eye level. "This is your home now." Elias, standing in the background, felt a lump rise in his throat. Watching his daughters lead with such grace and strength filled him with both pride and regret. But more than anything, he felt hope for the future. A mentor's role. Though Elias avoided taking credit for the school, he quickly became a beloved figure among the children. His years of business experience proved invaluable in mentoring older students, teaching them about entrepreneurship, negotiation, and problem solving. One day, a shy boy named Kofi, not to be confused with their past adversary, approached him with a question. "Mr. Elias, how do you know what's the right thing to do?" Elias paused, his gaze distant. "I didn't always know," he admitted. "But I've learned that the right thing is often the hardest thing. It's about putting others before yourself even when it's uncomfortable." The boy nodded thoughtfully, and Elias ruffled his hair. "You'll figure it out, Kofi. You're already on the right path." Healing together. As the months passed, the school flourished, and so did the family. Amina and Zarah found themselves relying on Elias not just as a mentor for the children but as a father. Slowly, their relationship transformed from one of caution to one of genuine trust. One evening, as they sat together in the school garden, Zarah turned to Elias. "We couldn't have done this without you." "You could have," Elias said, his voice steady. "But I'm grateful you let me be part of it." Amina added, "You've changed, Papa. And so have we. I think Mama would be proud of all of us." Elias smiled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. "She would. She always believed in you, even when I didn't see it." Under the stars, they sat in comfortable silence, the weight of the past no longer overshadowing their present. Layla's Haven stood as a testament to their resilience, a beacon of hope for those who needed it most. For the first time in years, they felt whole, not because everything was perfect, but because they had chosen to heal together. A tale to inspire. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a golden glow over the grounds of Layla's Haven. The air buzzed with excitement as children, teachers, and community members gathered for the school's official opening ceremony. Colorful banners adorned the courtyard, and the scent of fresh flowers filled the air. Amina and Zarah stood on the small stage at the front of the crowd, their faces radiant with pride and anticipation. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and now it was finally here. Zarah stepped forward first, her voice carrying a warm, welcoming tone. "Thank you all for being here to celebrate the beginning of Layla's Haven. This school is more than a building, it's a place of hope, learning, and love. It's a safe haven for children who, like us, know what it's like to feel lost and alone." The crowd murmured in agreement, their expressions reflecting admiration and support. Amina took her turn, her tone steady and heartfelt. "Our journey to this moment has not been easy. We've faced loss, fear, and betrayal. But we've also discovered strength, kindness, and the power of resilience. Today, we want to share a part of our story, not because it defines us, but because it has shaped us." The crowd grew silent, listening intently as Amina and Zarah recounted their experiences. They spoke of their escape from a cruel stepmother, the kindness of strangers like Sefiu and Malik, and the challenges they overcame to build a life of independence and purpose. Their voices were steady, but their words carried the weight of their struggles and triumphs. "We learned," Zarah continued, "that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to let go of the pain, to heal, and to move forward. And we've learned that family is not about perfection. It's about showing up, again and again, even when it's hard." As she spoke, her gaze fell on Elias, sitting in the front row. His eyes glistened with emotion, and he gave her a small, encouraging nod. Amina concluded their speech with a powerful message. Layla's Haven is here because of the people who believed in us, who showed us that even in the darkest times, there's light. We want every child who walks through these doors to know they are valued, they are loved, and they are capable of greatness. The audience erupted into applause, cheers echoing across the courtyard. The children, inspired by the sisters' words, looked on with wide eyes, their young hearts filled with hope. Elias's reflection. Elias watched his daughters with a heart full of pride and gratitude. They had transformed their pain into something beautiful, something that would leave a lasting impact on countless lives. As he looked at the smiling faces of the children, he realized that this, his daughter's strength, compassion, and determination, was his true legacy. Layla's haven wasn't just a testament to their resilience, it was a tribute to the love their mother had instilled in them and the bond they had rebuilt as a family. When the ceremony ended, Amina and Zarah approached Elias. "You're quiet," Amina said with a smile. "What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," Elias said, his voice thick with emotion, "that you've done something extraordinary. I don't deserve credit for it, but I'm so proud to call you my daughters." Zarah hugged him tightly, and Amina joined in, their embrace a symbol of forgiveness and healing. The legacy lives on. As the night deepened, the celebration continued. Children laughed and played, teachers shared stories, and the community came together in joy. Amina and Zarah watched the scene unfold, their hearts full. "This is just the beginning," Amina said. "It is," Zarah agreed. "And it's a tale worth telling." Their journey had come full circle, transforming from one of survival to one of inspiration. The story of Amina, Zarah, and Elias became a beacon of hope, reminding everyone that even the most broken bonds can be mended, and even the darkest nights can lead to the brightest dawns.